as well as energy security. And for us to achieve that, we have to, or we must commit to a rules-based system where we can have peace and stability to ensure that this region remains a zone of peace so that we can have prosperity for all. Thank you.
Muchas. Thank Any delegation that would like to speak? The President Pedro Castillo is on his way to join the Assembly, so we are going to now play the pre-recorded message by President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky.
Dear Secretary General, dear representatives of the free nation of America, dear friends, I am grateful for the opportunity to address you at this particular time when we have entered a defining phase of our war for independence, when our heroes drive the occupying army out of our land. Russia sent this army to our country to turn us into their colony, as it was, unfortunately, before in the time of empires. But millions of Ukrainians stood up to defend our freedom and our country, and will definitely not allow Russia to bring back that old unfair times. We have no doubts about winning this war and our ability to protect the independence of Ukraine. Daily victories at the front and dozens of liberated Ukrainian cities and villages prove it. There is only one question for us right now: how many of our people Russia will manage to kill before it admits a defeat? How much more will Russia manage to steal from Ukraine? Grain, resources, industrial enterprises, which the occupiers simply disassemble and take out to Russia, as well as people. They are stealing people. More than 1,600,000 of Ukrainians were forcibly deported to Russia. They are dispersed across the territory of this state, scattered throughout remote Russian regions. Many of them and their documents taken away. And many of them passed through terrible Russian filtration camps where they were abused and intimidated. These are people, but for Russia, it's also a resource. We are doing everything to free our land as soon as possible, to save all our people from this invasion as fast as we can. We are doing everything to put an end to the long list of Ukrainian victims that Russia is creating. This is the reason I'm addressing you. We need your support to bring back peace faster for our people. I will be honest. I know that in some member countries of your organization, unfortunately, the Russian view of this war is dominant. And this is a false view. It is possible in your part of the world simply due to the fact that Russia spends billions of dollars annually on its propaganda, media, and other projects that create an illusory impression about it. But there are facts on the side of Ukraine, and I'm asking you just to look at these facts. Look from your point of view in terms of what your great American continent has been through, from the point of view of the struggle for independence that your people led in terms of simple human justice, which means so much to your countries and people, and in terms of what your national heroes fought for. I'm turning to the pages of the history of the American continent and asking, on whose side would Simón Bolívar be in such a war that Russia unleashed against Ukraine? Who would José de San Martín support? Who would Miguel Hidalgo sympathize with? I think they would not help someone who is just looting a smaller country as a typical colonizer. I think they would not support someone who constantly lies and doesn't even call a war, hiding behind the definition of special military operation. I think they would not sympathize with someone who deliberately puts different countries on the brink of starvation through an official food crisis, who drives people into poverty through price and energy crisis, both artificial, and who is so mean that he makes war against civilians, destroying all the foundations of normal social life using rockets and artillery against residential buildings, hospitals, schools, churches. I thank those of you who have already strongly supported Ukraine and condemned Russian war against our freedom and independence. And I thank your organization for suspending Russia's observer status. But we need more. We need more for the sake of peace and for the Russian army to leave all captured Ukrainian land. So I'm asking you to support us on several levels. The first level, international organizations, particularly the UN General Assembly. Please support us in voting to condemn Russia's aggressive policy. It is of our common interest, so that no one in the world can start wars of aggression like the Russia war against Ukraine, and so that no one in that world thinks that he has right to illegally annex lands of other nations, as Russia thinks. The second level is national. We need integrity from your states. Do not allow your economies to be used to finance criminal war and war crimes. Do not associate yourself with those who will inevitably be condemned by the international community. The crime of Russia's aggression against our country, the mass murders of civilians on Ukrainian soil, forced deportations, numerous cases of torture and rape, all this will certainly receive its verdicts. Please avoid your companies and countries to be connected with those individuals and legal entities in Russia through which it carries out its terror against Ukraine. Support sanctions against Russia. Limit your trade operations with Russia. Protect yourself from the risk of tarnishing your reputation with ties to a terrorist state and its companies, and limit its opportunities to continue this war of aggression against Ukraine. And the third level of support we need is the level of ordinary people. I'm not asking for much. Just spread the truth about this war and the casualties caused by the Russian aggression. Just talk about it. Let your people know what evil Russia has brought to the absolutely peaceful Ukrainian people, a nation that has never started any wars of aggression. The greater the support for those who fight for the freedom and independence, the stronger freedom will be in general in the world, and the faster we will go all the way to freeing our land from the Russian invaders. I thank you for your attention. Long live freedom. Viva la libertad. Slava Ukraini.
At the conclusion of this dialogue, I would like to express my deep thanks to all of the foreign ministers and permanent representatives who have taken part in this very worthwhile exchange, as well as the permanent observers in this room or from your capitals. Your participation is, without a doubt, a reflection of the firm commitment to the peoples of the Americas, and encourages us to continue bolstering this engagement in dialogues, programs, and activities of the OAS. I reiterate My thanks to the Secretary General, the Department of Foreign Relations, for your support in strengthening ties and creating synergies among us to continue creating venues of cooperation and to continue strengthening this very positive exchange with our important partners. Thank you very much. And we will continue now forging ahead in subsequent programs.
Hola, 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 hola. English, English. Hola, 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 hola. Hola, 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 hola. English, English, English. Hola, 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 hola. English. Hola, hola, hola. ¿Qué tal? ¿Cómo están? Probando. Hola, hola, hola. Sí, hola, hola. ¿Queda? ¿Queda, no, Rick?
Buenas tardes. Damas y caballeros, muy buenas tardes. Los invitamos por favor a guardar asiento. Asimismo, se recuerda a los distinguidos asistentes, por favor colocar sus teléfonos celulares en modo avión, silencio o vibrador a fin de no interrumpir la sesión inaugural. Muchas gracias. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Please take your seats. The session will begin briefly. Damas y caballeros, muy buenas tardes. Los invitamos por favor a guardar sus lugares. En breves momentos se dará inicio a la ceremonia. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The ceremony will begin briefly. Damas y caballeros, por favor, los invitamos a tomar asiento. La ceremonia empezará en breves momentos. Asimismo, les recordamos, por favor, colocar sus celulares en modo avión, silencio o vibrador a fin de no interrumpir la sesión inaugural. Muchas gracias. Se invita a los distinguidos jefes de delegación, por favor, a tomar su lugar en el estrado de honor. Damas y caballeros, por favor, los invitamos a tomar asiento. En breves instantes se dará inicio a la sesión inaugural. Muchas gracias.
Dominica y Canadá. ¿Dónde están los puntos de Dominica y Canadá?
Hace su ingreso al Salón Lima 1 el excelentísimo señor presidente de la República del Perú, José Pedro Castillo Terrones. Lo acompañan el secretario general de la Organización de los Estados Americanos, Luis Almagro, el ministro de Relaciones Exteriores de la República del Perú, doctor César Rodrigo Landa Arroyo. Podemos tomar asiento. Señoras y señores, muy buenas tardes.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. This inaugurates the 52nd General Assembly of the Organization of American States. Firstly, we will share a video about Lima, the host city of this General Assembly of the Organization of American States.
the Secretary General of the Organization of American States, Honorable Luis Almagro Lemos. Mr. President Pedro Castillo, chiefs of delegations, ministers, friends, colleagues, the peoples of the Americas are suffering from inequality and discrimination. Discrimination and inequality are ways of assaulting people's dignity, which of the most base way. Discrimination results from the outlook of the empowered class, the mindset of machismo, of white skin, of one's privileged geographic location, because based on these conscious acts of discrimination against the poor, women, LGBTI populations, discrimination against Afro-descendant and indigenous peoples, peasants, or rural people who live in the countryside, rural dwellers. We should be something else, do something else as brethren of the Americas. Every time someone discriminates against someone, that person's rights are being undermined. When you look down at that person, when you deny that person's ability to be our equal, this affects the very culture of things. And denying that person's enjoyment of his or her rights, the most basic aspect of human relations, is being undermined. This is the most base sentiment of anyone, and this points to more serious systemic problems that leads to political or social injustices, societies, and that are beset by different types of discrimination are unfair societies, and unfair societies are failed societies, as the Spanish philosopher said, José Antonio Molina. On this day of pardon, I respect and greet the Jewish community, a substantial part of the Americas. Those precepts that inspire Yom Kippur, that drive us to reach higher at this 52nd General Assembly, to act, to be the best we can vis-a-vis our brethren, starting with conditions for life and health, for development, and those things that affect people. Climate change, when we think about how that affects people, the security of nations and of people, the violation of rights, a lack of knowledge of people's basic rights, organized crime, drug trafficking, inequality, extreme inequality, proliferation of light weapons, firearms, the lack of democracy, the existence of dictatorships, violation of human rights, freedom of expression, attacks against journalists, human rights, food security, institutional stability, breaking down of checks and balances. These are all things that strike out against equality in the hemisphere. This isn't just a mere description of an analytical description of a reality that each morning citizens of the Americas wake up to. Inequality and discrimination is something that we see in every neighborhood, in every city, in every far-off region where people don't have access to basic services, where we see the social fabric being torn in our societies, every odious difference that is created based on any reason for discriminating against people just because they are different from how we think they ought to be. We have to be mindful of this and to, through dialogue, strive to enhance democracy, peace, to find solutions, enabling us to live in the Americas where democracy will be the rule without any exception, only democracy for all inhabitants of the Americas.
There are solutions to address the problems that we are facing. The polarization in our systems is growing in strength, not fading away. We see problems that need solutions. Our politics is polarized, our economies are polarized, and so we find ourselves in a vicious cycle that we cannot find a way out. We need to find a path to peace. Our hemisphere remains the most violent in the world. How can this be? Despite being home to only 9% of the world population, we account for 1/3 of the world's homicides. This is a needless tragedy that only serves to slow and even roll back our development. A prosperous future requires human security. Our singular goal must be to achieve and then maintain peace. A prerequisite for any meaningful development. It is necessary if we want to educate our next generation of children. Failing to address the violence, the human rights violations, the crimes against humanity, this is a price that we are paying ourselves because it is our own commitment, our own communities that are paying the price. We need to find solutions to address the violations, and we need to find solutions for how to respond when new violations happen. Against that backdrop, it is critical that migration is integrated into development policy planning with a human rights-based concept. The challenge is therefore to link migration and development from a non-linear standpoint, by examining how migration impacts development and how development policies affect migration. We need solutions also for our environment. We are not taking the issue of climate change seriously enough. I am not referring to the awareness campaigns of this matter. This has been sufficient. However, the disconnection with its harmful effects is actively ignored by those in control of policy-making decisions and by those who are in control with the way they choose to live their lives. We must be conscious of protecting the only earth we have to live on. The persistent challenges caused by climate change are worsening and is creating a domino effect which threatens regional food security, forces the displacement of our people, and overwhelms our economies. The genesis of the problem requires not only attention, but action and appropriate funding to foster a climate-resilient environment for the region. Coming back to our theme, together against equality and discrimination. This challenge is a key priority for the OAS mandate for more rights for more people. Through the work of the OAS and the Inter-American Human Rights System, our region has pioneered standards and institutional framework on human rights of groups in vulnerable situations that can serve a model for other parts and areas of the world. We continue to work with member states to adopt and ratify the Inter-American Convention Against Racism, Racial Discrimination, and all related forms of intolerance, as well as the Inter-American Convention Against all forms of discrimination and intolerance. Although our region is diverse, we regrettably share a history of discrimination and exclusion that has silenced or eliminated the voices of many. This reality has been poignantly evident during the last 2 years, when the ravaging effects of pandemic were disproportionately borne by those that have been disenfranchised through historical discrimination. The efforts must be to find solutions for everybody, find solutions against homophobia, find solutions for Afro-descendants, find solutions for indigenous people. We need to find solutions. La Comisión Interamericana.
The Inter-American Commission of Women speak of parity as being a key aspect for women to have the right to rise to positions of power, and a life free of violence in which peace and security at the pillar of development, addressing autonomy and economically empowering women, and caregiving as a structural aspect of remunerating work done at home. Culture of machismo needs to be vanquished.
Debemos creer en la democracia.
We need to believe in democracy more than ever. The constitutional mandates need to be respected, never sacrificed. Democracy is the only solution. Democracy is that which can provide solutions for our people. We need to understand what it means. We need to be capable of endowing our democracies with the best institutions, the best citizenship, and best solutions for people. Thank you.
A continuación.
And now we will hear the remarks by the President of Peru, José Pedro Castillo Terrones. To the President of the Congress of the Republic, ladies and gentlemen, ministers of foreign affairs of the countries of the Americas and heads of delegations, Mr. Secretary General of the Organization of American States and Assistant Secretary General, President of the Council of Ministers and members of the Ministerial Cabinet, ladies and gentlemen of the delegations of member states, of the permanent observers and international organizations, to the youth of the Americas, labor unions, workers' organizations, and civil society organizations present at this General Assembly. On behalf of the government of the people of Peru, I extend a warm welcome. It is our great honor to be once again hosts of the General Assembly of the Organization of American States. This is a show of our now renewed and permanent commitment of Peru with the values and the institutions of the inter-American system, as well as a testament of the faith shown to Peru as a member of the Organization of American States. It is comforting to us that, as was the initial hope of our country, the health conditions have allowed for this meeting to be held in person. I wish to extend appreciation to the representatives of youth, of workers, and organizations of the civil society, as well as the corporate representatives who have participated in important meetings and exchanges on the themes of this meeting and of many other highly relevant themes for our region. I am ever more convinced that the valuable contributions of your discussions will be heard by our foreign ministers and will enrich the exchanges and discussion over the course of the days of our assembly. To all the youth present, I particularly thank you for accepting our invitation in the city of Los Angeles a few months ago and to join us in this capital city. Ladies and gentlemen, in the particular context that we in our region and in the world are going through, let me note that this assembly has taken on as priority themes the struggle that we are engaged in to work together against discrimination and inequality. These phenomena not only exist, but deepen and extend throughout our continent based on the structural failures and economic difficulties that we experience, which have not only been present but deepened as a result of the pandemic. Inequality and discrimination are a constant threat to the values on which the peoples of the Americas have decided to build our lives together. Additionally, they weaken our sense of belonging together in democracies. They erode the harmony and peace that should be priorities for our societies. But above all, inequality and discrimination place on enormous parts of our population conditions that are unjust and lead to poverty, restricting them to develop their own skills and capacities on the basis of their efforts and their work. These very contemporary problems are rooted in our own histories. In different times and in different places, men and women of the Americas have even given their lives to eradicate the suffering caused by discrimination and inequality. This is a lesson from our histories that we must not forget. Even if the tools with which we will struggle against these scourges are different today than those that we knew before. The forms of discrimination, the forms of inequality in our world today are deepening and are resulting from different causes which very often interact with each other. A lack of income equality, a lack of belonging on the basis of geographic or ethnic origin. The gender differences very often are in keeping with a lack of access to health and the digital divide, together with the challenge to enjoy a healthy environment and an environment free of contamination. Other factors that come together, such as the severe economic crisis resulting from the pandemic, the higher cost of access to energy and fertilizers as a result of the climate change effects, only deepen the gaps that make our region, for some time now, the most unequal one on our planet. The massive migration patterns and displacements that have occurred in this region and in other regions of the world are a desperate response to the search for better opportunities for people and their families. For this reason, to act effectively against the challenge of inequality does not only involve a reduction of the levels of poverty. It is necessary that we develop redistribution policies. There is clear evidence of the challenges that this poses for stability in our countries, in our democracies and societies. The concentration of wealth in the hands of just a few families when millions have nothing. It is also relevant to note the conclusions of the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, entitled Social Panorama of Latin America, which, in considering the data from 2020, points out that for every dollar that an average citizen has, there are 149,000 available for any of the wealthiest citizens in our region. Something so dramatic as it is unacceptable. This, together with the excessive earnings which some are making based on the high cost of energy and fertilizers, has also made life more costly in the weeks leading up to this assembly, have led many world leaders to address this. We share these sentiments fully. Education. The right to education and other rights must be our priority. And we must note that this must be addressed as a reduction of the social gaps, which must be priorities in the 2030 agenda, and is at the heart of concerns of many international organizations and regional commissions, such as the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean. Our governments also design and implement political policies, economic policies, and so we must ask ourselves the following question: why bringing this issue again to the debate? Because we must address the deep social and economic gaps resulting from the pandemic and reaffirm as fundamental rights the right to health, the right to education, the right to work, housing, and food. We must responsibly address the fact that our educational systems need to equip our students with the skills and the knowledge needed to meet the challenges in our world today. Additionally, at the international level, we must continue promoting and encouraging the application of conventions to guarantee social welfare so that migration does not mean a loss of such benefits. To achieve these goals, in many of our countries, we must expand our tax base progressively and fight against tax evasion and the avoidance of payment of taxes. It is doubtless the case that in the short and medium term, we need to strengthen our economies so that they are less dependent and less vulnerable to the fluctuations in the world economy. More robust economies, which translate into greater welfare for a larger number of people in our countries. We also must do away with the barriers present as a result of discrimination, which very often our societies wish to disregard, leading to hate campaigns, which regrettably have emerged and arisen in many of our countries. Let us stop to consider the danger that these hate speeches represent for the peaceful coexistence of our peoples. This assembly gives us the opportunity to face these issues regionally with the urgency and the frankness that the situation requires. We must commit, renewing our commitment to equality of opportunities, access in the market, in the labor market, in the economy, and a guarantee of human rights for all. José María Arguedas, one of Peru's greatest novelists, taught us that Peru is a country of many angels, a country that contains a message of hope appropriate for our continent. From Alaska to Cape Horn, this extraordinary diversity cannot be contained or restricted to just a few words, but which is evident in the richness of our cultures. We are a continent of many blood strains. This shouldn't be an obstacle for us to work together. We can be different, but this should not be an excuse to tolerate injustice. It is the time for us to come together as people, and I have hope, I have faith that as peoples of the Americas, we can work together against inequality and against discrimination. Dear sisters, dear brothers, it is with great emotion and with a firm conviction that the work of this assembly will allow the peoples of the Americas to fight together against inequality and discrimination. I declare open this 52nd regular session of the General Assembly of the Organization of American States. Welcome and good afternoon.
Señoras y señores,
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the inaugural session. We now invite you to enjoy a musical presentation from the National Children's Choir of Peru.
Thank you.
Podemos tomar asiento.
Please take your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, the presentation by the National Chorus of Children has concluded. We would like to thank everyone for being here, and we would remind you that the Cultural Act will be on the street of Archaeology, and we would ask you to please make your way there in an orderly way. And thank you very much.
Damas y caballeros, por favor, los invitamos.
We would ask you to please remain seated until the heads of delegation withdraw, the President, the Secretary General, and the Assistant Secretary General. Thank you very much.